Hello everyone, welcome back to House of Chi Yoga. Today I would like to bring you a slow stretchy class. It's going to be more towards a yin class, but not quite yin. We won't be holding things quite as long as a yin class. I do have some props with me. I have two blocks, a pillow, a blanket, and I'm sitting on my pillow. If you have any things you would like to use, bring them in. If you don't have anything, don't worry about it. You can still do this class. If you have more things, definitely bring them in. More is better. We're looking for comfort. We're looking for relaxation in this class. We're looking for deep stretching, deep breathing, and we'll just infuse a little bit of movement just so that we're not sitting together on video for long amounts of time because I don't have any background music. So I thought that might be a little bit awkward. So we'll see what happens today. We're going to do some yin-ish and deep stretch. So go ahead and get comfortable wherever you are seated. If you'd like to sit in a chair, you can be on the edge of a couch, whatever's comfortable. We're going to sit for a minute, and I want to make sure that your hips and your back and everything is going to allow you to be still. So if there's any movement you'd like to get out, go ahead and get out now. I like to shake my hands, exhale through the mouth, and just kind of let things go for a minute. And then we'll bring our hands to our belly and just start breathing deeply into the deep belly, and you can feel the expansion of the belly against the palms, both on the inhale and the exhale. I'm tripping over my words this morning. Let's inhale together and exhale together. One more big inhale, fill up all the space, and big exhale, let it go. Then you can keep your hands at your belly, or you can bring them down to your lap or to the floor, whatever is most comfortable. And let's go inward, finding the sitting bones. Start lining the spine up, so press the sitting bones down and lift and lengthen through the spine. Feel the head stack right over the shoulders stack right over the hips, and there's plenty of space in the body for the breath to move. Noticing first where the breath is going. You feel the expansion in the ribs as you inhale. Maybe you feel the shoulders gently lift and the belly gently expand. As you inhale, keep filling up the space. But now I want you to expand beyond the body. So inhale, you're filling up all the space. You're taking the breath all the way to the crown of the head, the fingertips, the toes, and then just outside the body. Staying with your breathing, staying with your inhales. Creating awareness through the body. As you breathe and move the breath through the body, you're becoming more aware, more conscious, more connected with your own body. One more inhale here. See if you can expand beyond the body just a little bit more, maybe about a foot away from the body. And then bring your awareness to your exhales. Long, slow exhaling. Each time you exhale, bring in more calm, more ease, more release. When we have long, deep exhales, it stimulates our nervous system in a very calming way. Allows us to go into rest and digest mode. A few more intentional exhales. And this time when you exhale, go through the joints of the body and release each joint. You can move through the neck, the shoulders, all the way down the arms. Just keep traveling through the body, intentionally releasing at the joints. When you've completed your last exhale, we'll inhale, palms up together. Exhale, hands down to your heart together. And if you'd like to bring anything into your practice, if you'd like to take a moment of gratitude, now's the time to do it. And then you can start moving through the wrists, the fingers, the toes, the ankles. Maybe adding some movement through the shoulders and the torso. I like engaging up through the spine and then all the way through the neck. Placing the fingertips or maybe the full palm to the ground. Just take a moment to ground yourself. You can do some movement at the bottom. Circular movements, releasing the shoulder girdles. And then let's move like a cat-cow spine here to release the back. Coming up through center, let the arms just hang across body. And we're going to move into our first posture, which is a back release posture. It's very comfortable. I like using as many prompts as I have. I'm not quite sideways on my mat, so I'll have to show you a sideways position, and then I'm going to turn myself back to my mat. So I'm going to take the blanket, and if you have a bolster is a great thing to use here. But I just have my blanket with me today. So I'm going to fold it up and just make a little shape like this so I can place it right at my low back. I'm placing the bolster at my low back. I'm going to go ahead and keep my prompts near me. Once I'm on my back, you can see the bolster is above the tailbone, so it's allowing my pelvis to slightly tilt, and I feel a little bit of gentle pressure up in the low back space. Now I'm going to take the pillow to my low body and just place my legs gently on the pillow for comfort. And then I like to use a block for the head, and it just depends on how high or low you want your head. You can use 1 or 2 blocks, or maybe you have another pillow. You can also take the pillow and place it above the legs as well if you want some extra pressure on the legs to open up the hips and the groin. So from here, you can do anything you like with the arms. I try to think about opening up the chest, so I get the scaps underneath. I tuck them back, especially if you have those scaps that kind of chicken wing out. Draw them in and down, and then press towards the mat. So the weight of the body is going to keep the scapula pushed in. Now you can open up the chest here, palms facing the ceiling, and work on breathing back into the body. Inhaling is important, but during this rest and digest class, let's focus on the exhales. Focusing on the release through the exhales, the softness. And in each one of these postures, maybe take a moment to go back through the joints just to make sure everything is soft. We're not holding any tension in the joints. You can gently add some movement through the arms. And the purpose of adding some movement in the arms here is just to allow the front of the shoulder to relax even more. So I like to lift and lower my arms. Kind of gives me a little scap massage on the back, and it expands the space from the pec across to the deltoid. And then I'm feeling some stretches up and overhead. So I'm going to keep my arms straight in line with the body and reach up and overhead. You're inhaling as you reach, And you're exhaling as you bring the hands back down to the thighs. Inhale to reach. Use the inhale here to fill up the ribs to create more stretch. Exhale, bring it down long and slow. Inhale, lift. And exhale, this time hands to the belly. And I just create a little diamond shape with the hands. Go right over the navel and give yourself a little belly massage. Now, this is a pretty stretchy position if you have tight psoas, tight hip flexors here. So I'm going to take my thumbs and find the hip bones and then just press all along the hip bone. I go to the inside, even on top of the hip bone, and you can even push to the outside. Whatever feels good. Usually if something's a little tender, that's a good spot to focus on. So don't be nervous if it feels tender. Maybe just go a little more gently, but still working through those areas. Sometimes you can even just grab onto the hip bone and work both the front and the back of the hip. Keep breathing. Try to keep the muscles soft. It's kind of funny if you're ticklish, maybe you tend to tense up. Try not to. Try to breathe and keep the muscles soft so the fingers can do the work to soften the muscles even deeper. And then if you'd like to go a little farther with the stretch through the spine, I'm going to take my wrists and they're going to face each other at the hip line. And very gently on the exhale, you just give a little pressure, a little tug downward. I do a little shake to release the sacrum area. Keeping the belly muscles soft so there's nothing resisting that little tug. And then very carefully backing out of the pressure. And we'll use the hands to bring the legs towards midline. From there, walk the feet close to the body. Gently tuck the chin and start lifting the hips. And just remove whatever's underneath supporting the low back. Bring the sacrum about an inch off the mat and then just give it a shake. If you have really tight low back space, shake it out. Let everything kind of adjust itself. Sometimes coming out of this posture is a little intense, so work with your breathing. And then let's bring the sacrum all the way down and walk the knees into the chest. Gently rock right to left. You can do some circling around the knee, and you're getting a nice little massage all the way across the sacrum. Let's go 3 circles opposite direction. And then if the pillow or something is beneath your feet, let's go ahead and slide it out of the way. And we'll place our feet directly on the ground. My head's feeling pretty comfortable on this block, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep it here. Feel free to. What I don't want is for your head to be way up high. So if you need to maybe remove one layer, if you have a couple layers on there, do that. If you want your head on the floor, that works as well. Okay, take your peace fingers right to the hip bones and to the inside of the hip bone. And our heels are staying relatively close to our booty down there. So pressing the feet down, feel the hips and the glutes engage, and then just gently pull the hip bone toward the base of the rib cage. So you're feeling that pelvic tilt forward here, and then you can gently release down to the floor. Now incorporating some breath, let's exhale to bring it up, push through the feet, engage hips and glutes, keep squeezing. My hip bones are pulling towards my rib cage, and then exhale to release. So this is an active movement. Let's bring it up, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Exhale, release. Let's go one more at this height. Keep holding, keep holding. Keep the feet active on the floor. And gently release. Now you can stay with this version of the pelvic tilt. If you want to go up higher, place the palms down, even the elbows, the triceps. I'm using this push to help me lift and drive towards the ceiling. You may need to walk your feet a little farther away. And now I'm going to engage all the way up to the top. This is a bigger squeeze on the glutes. It's a little bit less of a pelvic tilt here. I'm driving straight up towards the ceiling. And then gently release. Now on the release, you have a lot of space to roll through the spine. So engaging, pressing up to the top, hold, hugging everything in, My knees aren't actually moving towards midline, but energetically just squeezing everything in. And then nice, slow roll down. Still breathing, still working those exhales. Let's take it up, squeeze. Let's float both toes, feel the front of the shins working. And then exhale down. And now 5 times nice and fluid. So we're just inhaling up and exhaling to release, working the muscles all the way around the hips, the pelvic floor. We want to get them nice and warmed up so we can go into some deeper stretching. I'm not paying attention to my number. I think we have 2 more. Inhale, lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, lift. Exhale to release. Let's take the legs up into the air. Give them a little shake. Really soft ankles, really soft toes. And then we'll bring the feet back in close to the body. So we're going to roll to one side, press it up through center. And now we're going to move towards a side bend. So having whatever props near you again. I'm not sure what I'll be using here. So I'm just going to gather my props and bring them to one side. And we're going to go, it's a pretty intense side bend. So we're going to add some movement first. Let's take the right leg out, left heel in. And my leg isn't fully open to the side. There's a little bit of a closed angle here. I don't want to be too open to begin. Add some point flex, move the ankle if you need to. Maybe add the lift and lower through the knee joint. Try to press the back of the knee to the mat. And then keeping the back of the knee down, just reach across body to start working into the sides. As you're reaching across body, the sits bones are staying planted. If my sits bones were lifting up and coming with me, I wouldn't be feeling that stretch on the side. So you have to have that grounding point of the sits bones and then lift up and away from it. Take a few more. Feeling the muscles firing up a little bit. Now we're going to stay on our side bend towards the extended leg. So I want my toes facing up towards the ceiling, back of my knee joint working down, so maybe flex your quad muscles. And then I'm going to take my right hand and just bind it onto the front foot. So there's lots of different versions you can do here. You can bind, you can take the forearm down to the ground. If you're not quite as flexible, you could use some blocks here. You can put the blocks in front. Let's see, or you can thread all the way under to the opposite hip. So I'm just going to go for a little mid version here and just reach the top arm across. I'm trying to get my fingertips toward my toes, but I don't want this shoulder to close. So you can see here, you can see my armpit, you can see my full chest. If I was leaning forward, my chest would disappear. So we want to be nice and open and create a really nice side bend through the left side. So again, the sits bones working down. The weight of the body is pulling the side rib open, the underarm open, and just hold and breathe. We are going to hold this for a few breaths. So if it gets too intense, you can always just square up and release the side bend stretch. The ultimate pose is looking up towards the ceiling. That is a little bit more pressure on the neck. I'm just going to gently bring my gaze down and relax through the shoulders and the neck. Deep breathing here. Your right side is contracted, so all the breath is going to be moving to this left side body. And you can see I'm kind of bouncing back and forth. I have a hard time sitting still in postures, so even adding a little bit of movement is beneficial. If you can't just sit still, just add a little bouncing, a little waving, a little something to keep you there. Taking 3 more breaths. And if you're working with your breathing, then you'd be exhaling as you reach closer. Inhale at the top of the bounce. Maybe you can get a little closer to the toes. I may be able to reach. If you do want to go for a bind, once you bind, try to roll the shoulder back open. So you can see I'm kind of driving my shoulder towards the back wall. Oh, that feels good. Let's take one more breath here. And gently releasing and just walk the hands forward. From here, take a breath and relax the low back. So I'm going to keep my right toes facing up towards the ceiling and stay a little bit longer through the spine. So no rounding here, nice and long. And now just exhale, feel the front ribs pull in, so all the space. And you can feel the pelvis tilting because you're bringing that space in. Inhale to release the ribs. Exhale, pull the front rib in. Inhale, flat back. One more time, a little bit more tilt this time with the pelvis. Maybe bring the chin down to the chest. Now, if you were able to hit that full range of motion there, let's inhale, gaze up. Exhale, pull it back. Inhale to lift, heart forward. Exhale, pull back, draw the sits bones down, bring your chin to your chest. One more inhale. And exhale, bring it in. Slowly roll up vertebrae by vertebrae. Nice. And then we'll bring right foot in and just shake the legs out for a moment. If you used your props for this pose, go ahead and take your props to the other side. We're going to move on to the left. The right heel stays in, left leg is nice and long. Working through the foot and the ankles. Adding your little lift and lower through the back of the knee joint. If you have really tight hip flexors, sometimes it's hard to get that knee down. And then keeping the toes active, let's start reaching right to left. Ooh, I feel a difference in my side body already. And then coming back through center. So if you've used your props, go ahead and grab onto them. I'm just going to keep my blocks near me in case this side is a little more tight. Whatever bind you took, on the other side. No, whatever bind you took on the other side. I don't know why I always say bound. It doesn't make any sense. Whatever bind you took, let's take the same one on this side. So active reaching. Remember, not closing off the chest, but keeping the space. Chest is nice and broad. You have plenty of space for the breath to travel through the right side body. Sits bones pulling down to create that point that we're stretching away from. And remember, you can always relax the head and just gaze down. If you need to add a little movement, a little bounce, feel free to. It can sometimes help you go a lot deeper into your posture as well when you're adding a little movement. Maybe you can start reaching the fingertips a little closer to the toes. Try not to close off the front space. It's so easy just to drop that shoulder. Keep lifting and extending so the focus stays on the side. Let's take 3 more breaths here. Focusing on deep exhales to release. Maybe the fingertips can reach the toe. Ooh, this side does feel a little bit more tight, struggling to get that right shoulder back up. And then as we release, we'll just gently walk the body forward. Keeping that left foot active. Oh, that side was very tight. Come to a flat back, long spine, and take a few breaths here. And then we'll start working just the front ribs in. So as you exhale, you squeeze navel to spine, ribs pull back to the spine. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, pull front ribs in. Inhale, neutral. Exhale, pull ribs in. Maybe you can go farther. Maybe the chin comes down. Inhale to unroll. Exhale, bring it back in. Maybe you can add a little bit more rounding. Inhale, flat. Exhale, see if you can take it farther. Let's do one more inhale. Exhale, pull it in. And then gently unroll vertebrae by vertebrae. Unrolling here, let's take both legs forward. And just kind of let the legs shake out. Maybe take the hands to the legs. Give yourself a little massage across the glutes, the low back space. Press down the side body. And then do a cupping hand. So you don't want to be smacking yourself with a flat hand. It's a little cupped hand. Cupped hand all the way through the side body. Some blood flowing. And we'll go both sides. Try not to hit the mic. Okay, from there, we're going to move on to a low lunge. And I am going to use my blocks on this one and a pillow for my back knee because why not? It's here. Might as well be comfortable. So I'm going to keep the pillow to the back of the mat. You can use a blanket or whatever you like. You can also just fold your mat up, double. You can double it if that's more comfortable for you. I'm gonna have my right leg forward, and I'm gonna add movement so I can hit my hamstrings and my back hip flexor first. So as I shift forward, my heart comes up. I feel a nice stretch across this back hip flexor. As I pull my hips back, I flex the right toes and I sink my chest towards the thigh. So I'm opening up hip flexors and then opening up the hamstring muscles. Working with your breath, inhale forward and then exhale fall. Inhale forward. Exhale fall. Let's go one more. Inhale forward. Exhale. This time landing forward. So I want to focus on that back hip flexor. And I like to do, there's two different versions. You can sink really heavily into the hip flexor and lift the heart up. That's going to hit a lot of that top hip flexor area. You also can push into the thigh and the top of the foot a little bit more. And now you're not sinking as deeply, but the stretch is moving down the quad. So you can kind of play with that, feel the difference between sinking all the way or lifting up a little bit and pushing slightly forward. It's just driving the focus down into the quads instead of the hip flexors. So I'm going to kind of just move in between those two different stretches for a few breaths, kind of pressing into the quad and then sinking deeper into the hip flexors. And the front leg is just there supporting, the hands are there supporting. You can always put your hands just on the mat if that's more comfortable for you. The blocks usually help us just get into a better position, just creates more space to allow that stretch to happen. Keep breathing. If you feel any pressure in your low back, maybe tilt the pelvis in a little bit. Let's take one more breath here. And then we're going to work into the other posture, so into our half splits pose. So my feet are in line with my hips, or my left leg is in line with the left hip, right leg is in line with the right hip. I just say that to make sure that we're not crossing this front leg too close or too far over. So we have some space in between the legs. My right leg is very active. My toes are facing up. And then you can forward fold from here. So if you struggle here and you're rounding, it's not going to take us to our hamstring so much. We want heart forward, and maybe you just can't go down as low. That's fine. But you want to work on that nice long spine, reaching through the heart, through the crown of the head, and then you should automatically feel more into the hamstrings here. If you feel like, oh, I can go a lot deeper to the hamstring, then you just sink it down. And because I love movement, I feel like movement is always needed within the stretch. You can add some rolling through the spine. And sometimes this rolling also helps you find that flat back because you're lifting. And then as you're unrolling the vertebrae, you can kind of feel, oh yeah, that's the flat back. That's where I feel that deep hamstring stretch. And then we'll come into a stillness if you've added movement. You can keep the hands here. I'm going to take my blocks to center, and I'm just feeling lazy. I'm just going to take it down to my forearms. So if you're coming down to the forearms with me, make sure the weight stays equal between the legs. You don't completely push into the left side. That right leg still needs to stay active. The right sits bone is pulling down. You want to still feel the hamstring stretch. Taking one more breath. And then gently bringing the hands down, shifting forward. I'm going to slide the blocks out of the way. And I'm just going to heel toe the front leg back into a quadruped position. From quadruped, you can take a minute to do any kind of movement that's calling to you. Maybe the legs need a little shake out. Maybe you want to go all the way back to downward facing dog. Give it a little shake. I'm always down for a shake, so let's do it in down dog here. And then I'll just slide the pillow over to the opposite side. So now my right knee goes to the floor and my left leg comes forward. Same thing on this side. I'm going to use my blocks to elevate, to create some space, and first add some movement. As you're going back, you're exhaling, you're finding the hamstring. As you're moving forward, you're inhaling, your heart comes up, and you find the hip flexors and quads. Keep breathing, adding your breath to the movement. Let's go 3 more times, front to back. This hip flexor is feeling really tight. What's up with my right side today? My right side is uber tight. And then we'll land on the way forward. Same thing on this side. We've got space in between. My feet are on train tracks. They're not crossing midline. The front one isn't crossing midline. You can sink deep into the front hip flexors. You can press into the top of the foot, back out of the stretch, and focus on the quads. I'm going to just keep shifting between these two because I feel like why not? Why not hit both of them? I'm always looking for hip flexor stretching, but I think I love the hip flexor stretch, so I often skip the quads. So I'm going to try to start doing a little bit more of both. I just feel like my hip flexors are always so tight. We do a lot of forward motion in life. A lot of hip flexor engagement. Maybe you can sink a little bit deeper. Let's shoot for 3 more breaths here. And then we're just going to gently back into our other position. So the hips come back, the front toes come up. I want to make sure I'm not crossing midline here. If you feel pressure on the knee, I should have mentioned this on the other side. If there's pressure on the knee, just lift up into your muscles a little bit more. So there's the tiniest micro bend. It doesn't even look like a bend. Here's pressure on my knee. Here's a tiny micro bend. Didn't really see a difference. I just gently lifted and engaged my quads more. So now for this position, you're making sure you feel the hamstring stretching. So wherever that is for you, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add movement first. Whoa, I have skinny blocks and they're a little bit wobbly. Preferably thicker blocks. So, oh my gosh, my blocks are giving out on me. So as you're adding movement, you're still keeping the top leg active. You're working on unrolling the spine. That's what the movement here is for, going all the way through the vertebrae, creating more space. And then we can land in a posture that we can hold and breathe. I'm going to go back to my forearms down, but I'm going to make sure there's still weight over in this left leg. Pull the hip back, pull the sits bones back, peel the toes back, feel the stretch. I feel this all the way down through my calves to my ankles today. Using the exhales. Notice if the weight has shifted to the right leg, make sure you're still working into the left side. Taking a few more deep breaths, getting the most out of this pose. One more inhale. And exhale to release. Engaging the hands back into the floor, starting to shift forward. Let's heel toe the top leg out and come back into our quadruped. Anything you need here, I'm just going to slide my pillow over, go to my downward facing, and add some movement through the legs. You can always do this in the quadruped position, hands and knees. And then we're going to walk it forward to a forward fold. So just a little step forward, maybe walk the hands back and hang heavy. Take opposite elbow. Press toe to heel down through the foot. You can take the head in a yes and a no. And then maybe you can take a bind to the back of the legs. Same thing, cross elbow. This time my hands are just going behind. If you want to stay on the forward one, of course, feel free to. If you're going to take the back bind, let's take an inhale. And exhale, long and deep, pull yourself together. Gently releasing the bind, bending the knees. Let's go all the way to the mat, onto the knees. We're going to move towards a half saddle, and we're moving towards the end of class. We'll do a saddle and a twist. Let's see what kind of props I can use for this one. So if this is really uncomfortable, you can sit on a big pillow, a couple pillows, just to create a little bit less of an angle on the knee. You can also just skip this pose. It is pretty intense on the knee, but I'm going to give us some warm-up stuff first. So my toes are underneath. I'm on top of my foot, and I'm energetically pulling towards midline. So I feel this little wrapping happen. As this little wrap happens, it engages my hips and my pelvic floor. Now I'm just going to lean back and feel a little stretch here. And then I'm going to rock forward and back. Moving into the low back space, moving into the hips. Again, if this is too much on the knees, maybe just open up this angle of the knee or decrease this movement front to back. And then if you're still with me here, we're going to go into a single leg straddle. I'm just going to pull one leg forward, and my other foot is going to pop outside of my hip. So if you can see, hopefully the blocks aren't in the way, the prompts. I have one leg straight, and the other heel, you can see it's just outside my hip. Now it's not very far, it's just barely outside my hip. My knees are going to stay glued together here. And I'm just going to take my hand and press on the top of the thigh, massage around the knee joint. This is a very intense posture, so take your time with this one. Feel it out, see how it feels in your own body. And if this feels good enough, if you feel like, okay, I can feel the stretch on the quads, I can feel that little tug on the knee, then stay here. If you feel like taking it back, I like to walk myself back and hold the sides of the mat to help me get there. So I'm actually going to scoot myself forward here. One of the main things I want you to remember is to keep the knees close together, so we don't want everything splaying out. Everything's right here at midline. I'm still keeping that little energetic wrap in, and then, ooh, my ankles feel super tight today, so I'm not even sure if I can go down. Oh yeah, I can do it. Okay, so here. It's kind of like a fish posture. My heart is up. I like to grip the sides of the mat to make sure I'm all steady, and then if you want, you can place the palms down. I'm just going to hold the sides of my mat so I have something to help me lift open through the heart. Now, as you're breathing, this right hip is going to stay heavy, so we don't want to land over here rolled to the side. Try to stay squared toward the ceiling. Keep breathing, chest open, relaxing through the shoulders. You can also go all the way to the floor here if you want to completely relax down. Feel free to. And we're not here for too long, so we just want to take some deep breaths, work on pulling the legs together, pulling the knee down, feeling the stretch across the thigh. Man, the past few weeks, my ankles have been so tight. I've been walking a lot more, walking my dog a lot more. And whew, I've been missing the ankle stretches. Let's take 2 more breaths here. And then to come out of this posture, you can roll over to the left side, so the long leg side. I'm going to just lean to the left and use my hands to walk it forward. And then completely lean. Use your hands if you need to unwind the leg. Any movement that feels good on the leg here. And then we'll extend straight legs forward. So just to kind of shake out the knees for a moment, maybe take a forward fold. Maybe check in with your legs, see if they're the same distance. Sometimes when I do this one, it stretches out my thigh, and then my leg gets a little longer. Okay, when you're ready, we're moving on to the opposite side. And it's the exact same thing. So one leg stays forward, one leg comes back. Now notice my knees are separate. So I'm going to pull my knees together. My heel is just outside my hip, not very far. I'm kind of still sitting on my hip. There's just a little space for my hip to sink down so I can work on staying squared here. I'm actually going to square up to my mat so I can use the grips again. So once you're comfortable, give yourself a little massage, especially around the knee joint. Keeping the knees together. If you want to go ahead and lean back, use the sides of your mat if you need to. Now, I like to use the sides of my mat too because it can kind of fall out of alignment as you're moving down. So once I'm there, I can use the mats to hold and adjust my legs back together, feel the left hip getting heavy, and then work on pulling the knee down and getting the stretch across the thigh. Same thing here, hard up, open up the chest, deep breaths. If you feel like you want to go all the way down to the back, feel free to. This side actually feels a little bit less tight, so I'm going to take it all the way down. And then carefully relaxing into the posture. Going all the way down does add a slight back bend, but it feels great if you can handle it. Trying to relax, excuse me, a little hiccup there. Trying to relax into the posture for 2 more deep breaths. And then as you gently come out of this posture, remember you can just lean to one side. If you're up tall, you can lean and then sit up. I'm going to just completely roll, open up the top leg, any kind of movement that feels good on the leg and the hip. Work through the knee joint. And then we'll come back to our Baddha Konasana this time, feet together. And we'll pull the heels close to the groin. Just take a moment to massage through the inner thighs. And then holding, you can use the elbows to push the knees down. And some people go heart forward, some people round. I like both feel good. Of course, I like movement, so I'm gonna roll through my spine. And then I get both of them at the same time. I go flat back and then I roll. And then we'll finish this sequence off with a nice twist. So legs are in front, and let's see what kind of props. I think we're just gonna do a basic twist here. So I have a block on my head, and I will take a little side view from here. Block at the head, unroll the spine. So you can do that little lift and unroll so we have lots of space for the vertebrae. Both knees are coming to the chest, and then I'm just going to take the other block in between my legs. You can use blankets or whatever. I like something in between my legs when I close my legs because it doesn't bring the hips, it doesn't put too much pressure on the hips. It keeps the knees a little bit more in line with the hips, and it just seems to feel better. So let's go ahead and take the knees to one side. I just moved my legs to the right side. This top arm, I'm just going to add some sweeping circles just to unroll this space again from the pec all the way to the delt. And then I'm going to land. I'm actually going to keep my hand, my arm open in this 90-degree and just open it to the floor and gaze towards the left wall. Now, because I have the blanket here, I'm just going to go ahead and use that blanket to place on top of my shoulder. Now, the blanket isn't very heavy, but it is just giving me mentally something that's kind of pulling that shoulder down, helping me go a little bit deeper into this twist. As we breathe here, we're working on twisting through the core. We're working on getting the back flat, chest facing the ceiling. We're working on detoxing as we twist, letting go, just wringing everything out in the torso. And if you feel like you can go farther with the low body, you can also take your top hand and just place it on top of the leg. Taking a few more breaths here. I'm trying to stay in my practice and not fall asleep at this moment. If you feel like you want to stay here longer, of course, feel free to. This is coming to the end of our practice. But if you're ready to move on with me, let's just remove whatever you have on top of that back shoulder. Bring the arm into the body. So now I'm facing one direction with my legs. And then I'm going to move everything back to square towards the ceiling. Take a moment, let the hips and the spine and the shoulders adjust back into place. And then we'll go straight to the other side. So I'm going to place the block again. Make sure the spine is nice and long. Bring the legs to the left side now. And then I'm going to roll my top arm, my right arm open. You feel that space from the pec and the shoulder. You can extend the arm. I'm going to keep mine in a 90. I'm going to use the blanket to just add a little something on top of that shoulder. Even if it's just enough to feel like my arm's getting pushed down a little bit. Backhand, I'm going to place on top of the leg to add a little bit deeper of a twist. And now we're just using the breath to soften and relax into the posture. Allow the twisting to dig deep into the belly. We're allowing that detox to happen. We're allowing the twisting through the spine to happen. Again, trying to stay with your practice and not fall asleep. Let's take a couple more breaths here. Just so perfect after a long stretch class to just take a little nap. I hope you have the freedom to do that today. Oh, excuse me. It's Friday over here for me, so I'm hoping to definitely get a nap in at some point. Let's remove whatever's on top of that right shoulder. Go ahead and bring the arm in close to the body. And then bring everything to square. Let the legs shake out. You can keep the legs up in the air for a moment. And just notice the hips, notice the legs. Try to keep heels, knees, hips in one line so you get some pressure down at the sacrum. And you can do some little circling with the legs. And then feel free to go into your full Shavasana pose from here. If you're going to do full Shavasana, maybe you do go right into that nap. My wish for you is that, yes, you get to go into a nap. But if you need a few moments of Shavasana, go ahead and take it there. And then when you're ready to seal class, we'll inhale, palms lift. Exhale, hands to your heart, thanking your body and thanking your practice. Thank you for joining me on that stretchy journey today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time on the House of Chi.